Now 8:31, and I will call the meeting of the City of San Angelo Development Corporation to order. I have asked Director Berriew to open us up in prayer this morning.
Thank you. If you would bow with me. Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the opportunity to live in this fine city of San Angelo, Texas. We thank you for the many blessings that you shower on this city. Some go unnoticed practically, but we do trust you for all of our provision. We ask that you be with this board, open our eyes to what is presented to us, and give us wisdom in the decisions that we have laid before us. Let them be decisions that are based on your goodness and your grace. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Moving on to public comment, issues or items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, begin by stating their name and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Board members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The board takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items. Do we have any public comment this morning? Come on up, Dave.
Good morning, Mr. President and Board. My name is Dave Erickson, Director of the ASU Small Business Development Center. And today I have two graduate assistants in the MBA program at ASU that work for us at the SBDC, helping us behind the scenes for everything we do. And it's great service learning opportunities for them, and they do a great job for us. And I just wanted to introduce them quickly and get them a taste of what it's like to public-private partnership, I guess. I guess it's public-public partnership, right? So I'll start with Anna first.
Thank you, Dave. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Uribe, and I am a graduate assistant at the Small Business Development Center. I started back in June, so I've been there for 9 amazing months and truly had an opportunity to work and learn from experienced certified business advisors who have made an impact here in the AS San Angelo community. Has been a great learning experience. I also work with our training coordinator, working to assist and help individuals here in San Angelo learn more by attending training events. I also work with client work as well as large projects such as BizPitch, which is a student business idea competition here at ASU, created to help foster entrepreneurship at Angelo State University with the help of Mr. Erickson and a lot of our team at ASU. And, if I can, I'd love to speak more about it. It is a business idea competition for students at Angelo State University, full-time undergraduate and graduate students, for the opportunity to pitch a business idea. They can be from any academic major, for an opportunity to start their own business during their college years, for a chance to win a combined total of $5,000, as well as get the opportunity to work with our business advisors to further develop their idea as soon as they leave college as well. This opportunity is fostered to help them once they get out, and they will also have the opportunity to have an office space at the Business Factory as soon as if they are a finalist. They will also have the opportunity to present at the LeGrand Alumni Center to 5 successful business entrepreneurs and individuals here in the San Angelo community who have made an impact as well on April 30th. So I'd like to invite everybody to that. It is open to the public to support and encourage our future leaders of San Angelo as well. And with that, I'd like to pass on to our other graduate assistant, Simba.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Good morning, everybody. My name is Simba. I'm also a graduate assistant at the SBDC. I am originally from Zimbabwe. I was raised in South Africa, and I came over here to pursue my college career. I'm currently on my MBA now, a year in. I really enjoy working at the SBDC with these guys. I primarily focus on the Business Factory Incubator Program. So I work alongside Dave and Miss Nora over there, and I'm really excited to be here for this opportunity, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
You.
Thank you all. We've had graduate assistants for 26 years. Not that they've been here 26 years, but and so it's a great part of the program. So thank you very much.
Dave, I don't think either one of them has been with us for 26 years.
Good morning. I would like to introduce our VISTA intern that started with us on January 22nd, Zach DeLugian. And he comes to us from Washington State in the Seattle area and has attended college at the University of Richmond. We didn't ask him to make a speech. I don't know if he wants to say words other than howdy or not, but I'll give him that opportunity. Zach?
I've been here a month now, and I really like San Angelo, and thanks for having me.
Glad you're here.
Welcome aboard, Zach.
Any other public comment this morning? None. I will move on to the next line item, a proclamation and recognition. Mr. Berriew, would you join me down front, please?
Oh, my.
Keep having to do this. Go ahead. Okay. For those of you unaware, this will be Director Berriew's last City of San Angelo Development Corporation meeting. And normally I'm just able to speak up here, but he's done so much for this board, we actually have to get some notes out. He was appointed to the COSA DC Board January 25th, 2011. So he has been a member of this for over 8 years. He's appointed to represent COSA DC to the Ports to Plain, as well as the I-14 Gulf Coast Coalition, Gulf Coast Strategic Highway Coalition, July 27th of 2016. Whenever you talk about volunteering your time to give back to your community, you want someone capable, you want someone willing, and someone passionate. And I don't think you're gonna find anyone that fits those three things better than John Berriew. So, from us to you, thank you very much for everything you've done,
Thank you.
and we would like to present you with this.
Wow.
I guess I'll hold it like that. All right.
I'd like to say I'm speechless, but
I doubt it.
I can talk anywhere.
It's the first time for everything, right?
Well, it's certainly been an honor and a privilege to serve on this board. Yes, I am passionate about San Angelo. It's been my home since 1979, and first came in 75 thanks to Goodfellow Air Force Base. Because of this board, I've been able to also be a little bit involved with keeping Goodfellow Air Force Base here and enhancing their missions. And as an alum of their educational system, that's been a patriotic privilege as well. I have been blessed to work with fine members of the board over the years, city officials, our own staff, and I'd like for them to get a hand. Because without them, this board really is just a sound box. They're the hands and the feet. They get the job done. And I just pray blessings on everyone that's been involved with this, as well as our city. Thank you.
Deserved. Move on to line item 5, consent agenda. Consider approving the January 23rd, 2019 meeting minutes. Consider approving the necessary corporation disbursements, and consider approving the January 2019 financial statements. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval of consent items A through C.
Motion by Mr. Dendel, second by Dr. Cummings. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We will move on to line item 6, do our regular agenda. Starting with an update on Chadburn Street project, a TA set-aside grant. Presentation by Rick Weiss, Assistant City Manager.
Sure, if it's your lucky day having to start off with me. Wanted to come and give you all an update on a project that's kind of exciting and one that you all have been involved with, and then kind of give you a little look to the future on where we're going next. Is it in here, or should I just go on?
No, she's good.
We can wait.
Okay. Well, I can kind of start.
Sure.
And a lot of it's just, so first what we're going to do is kind of give you an update on where we stand on the current Chadburn project that COCDC was approached about a good while back, and that council has kind of taken lead on moving forward after that. But basically, you'll recall the Chadburn project was from Houston Hart to Washington. So that was the scope of the distance that we were looking at. Phase A is from the Concho River going to Beauregard. So starting here on the Concho River on the north side and going to Beauregard is Phase A. Phase B is envisioned from Beauregard going to Houston Hart. I don't know if I'm throwing my arms the right way or not. And then Phase C will be from the river back to Washington. So the first chunk that we took, of course, is Phase A, which is the Concho River to Beauregard. And basically that consists of the street improvements, and we're changing those out. We take it out and we replace with concrete. So we're putting in concrete streets, concrete and streetscaping, all those kind of things, but with the goal of you're not having to go back and pave all the time. And so that takes that element away. And it includes a lot of pedestrian improvements, which includes right now we don't have a good connection from downtown down to the river trail. So it does include that connection that we put in there from right there at the Chadburn Bridge going down to the river level. And then it also includes a lot of utility improvements. So at the same time when we're taking that street out, putting in concrete, we're also addressing overhead lines, we're addressing water, sewer, all those things at the same time. So a little bit of project background. When we came to you last, we were looking at applying to TxDOT for a TA set-aside grant. Those funds are used strictly, they don't apply toward the street. They won't apply for the concrete or for the street. It only applies for the pedestrian elements. So while the project may be a large scope project, this TxDOT grant only applies for the pedestrian elements. Those can be streetscaping, it can be the bike lanes, some lighting, various things that it qualifies for. That required, just to refresh your memory, a 20% match, and San Angelo increased that to 25% to try and up our odds of actually getting the grant. So the TA set-aside was awarded to San Angelo for Phase A. We got $1.96 million from that grant, and Phase A must be let by July of 2020. So by TxDOT rules, we have to start that project by July of 2020. Are we anywhere close?
I'm sorry, how much did we get?
1.960335.
Was there an amount we were going after?
Well, originally, we were hoping to apply for a larger stretch of actual construction. When we talked to TxDOT, they said, really, we needed to scale it down, and this was about as much as they would recommend. So ideally, I would have liked to have doubled that. But as you recall, there was funding that we were hoping to get from the MPO, the local MPO had authorized, and had gotten that approved, and then the state changed the rules and said, no, actually, you can't do that anymore, so those funding sources went away. So this is really the scope we felt we could handle at this point. Thank you. Okay, so this is Phase A. Just to refresh your memory, those were the schematics that we had produced when we applied for the grant that HAF helped us do. This is A and B, going from the river all the way to Houston Hart. And then this is, of course, Phase C, which goes from the river back to Washington. So recently, we went to council to look at going for the design component and what we're going to do next. That final concept design included final concept design. What staff recommended was for A, B, and C. Construction documents and construction of water sewer utilities for A, B, and C. So that means actually designing all the water sewer stuff to be done and actually constructing it all in A, B, and C, not just A. And then we also recommended that construction documents for street and pedestrian elements be drawn up for Phase A and B. That means that we'll have a shovel-ready project for B already because we have construction documents done. Where did it go? Also, construction of street and pedestrian elements for Phase A. So actually implementing Phase A for a total of estimated total project cost of $10.175 million. And then the city, of course, waived the permitting fee. So basically what staff was proposing is for this first phase, it includes all the concept plans for A, B, and C. It includes design and construction of all the water, sewer, and utility elements and construction of those in A, B, and C, all of them, so that when we're doing the other, we're not, you've got all that infrastructure done, so you're ready to go with the top. And then construction documents for all of the pedestrian elements, meaning the street, the sidewalks, all of that, for A and B. So we're fixing to construct A, but B is going to be ready to go. It's shovel-ready when we turn in an application for a grant. And then actual construction of everything in Phase A. So we went out for requests for qualifications for professional services. We had 4 firms that applied. We interviewed all 4 of them, and we selected a local team, which is Centurion Planning and Design. So they're the ones that the committee recommended, took that to council, and council approved moving forward with Centurion. So the approved funding that we had in place for this project, this is just kind of refresh your memory. We had funding from streets, we had Tiers North, Tiers South, Coast DC, Stormwater, the wastewater fund, the water fund, hot dollars, and our TxDOT grant for a total of $11.142 million. What staff recommended, and you'll see some of these in the first column where it says funds, some of those dollars changed a little bit where you get into the sewer and water, and that's because we were actually doing more work in those areas than we originally had listed in dollars. So those funds stepped up and put more money in to cover the cost of that. As you remember, I said we're implementing those construction of all those things in A, B, and C right now. So that's why those dollar amounts went up. So more money came in from the sewer fund, the water fund, and so forth. So what we did was the total project cost is anticipated at the 10.175. And you'll notice that only a little bit of North Tiers dollars were spent, and that's because there's not a lot of work going on in the North Tiers in this project. What work is going on there pertains to design and pertains to the infrastructure that's being put in. So we were only using proportional dollars for that work. The other comes from, of course, the rest of the funding sources, and then you'll see the dollars that remain or projected to remain after the 10.175 is spent. When we told council that, we leave a 1.7 million, and we said those dollars would remain as contingency or dollars to be spent on the next phase as we move forward. So this is the schedule for the utility implementation in A, B, and C. You'll notice that we gave notice to proceed in February, and construction the bid is to be let by October of 2019, and construction complete on that by September of 2020. The proposed schedule for Phase A, you'll see that, of course, once again, we did the notice to proceed in February. The bid has to be let, as I mentioned earlier, by June of 2020. And so that will be the schedule so far. And then as far as the construction schedule, you'll notice that it's anticipated to be completed in September of 2022. And the bid, of course, still let in June. So about a year's process as far as construction. I think that's pretty much the summary of the current project. Do y'all have any questions on that before we move on?
I would like to add, our 3.75, that's over a 5-year period. So that's $750 per year.
That's correct. And actually on a lot of these dollars, of course, y'all's clock started on that, I don't know what year that was.
2.5, 3 years ago.
Yeah. So you're a little ways into that already. What council did on several of these is like the tiers, those are over a period of time as well. So it's not unique on y'all's case. And what they do typically on those is if there's a funding source and for some reason the project moves up ahead of when those dollars are coming in, then the general fund will have to front those dollars and then be reimbursed. So, but in this case, it looks like a lot of it is tracking to where it's going to work out pretty well from when we actually get started on construction.
Also, Rick, you said the project's complete of 2020. That's the bid let is 2020, and the completion date's like 2022. Is that correct? All the construction?
Phase A bid let is, yes, June 2020. So yes, when we actually let the bid, but when we actually get the full construction, yes, has a.
Construction completion is like 2022. Is that correct?
Correct. That's when
Or-
they're proposed as far as what.
For Phase A.
Yes.
Okay.
How soon could you apply for the Phase B for
We're going
grant?
to talk about that next.
Okay.
One step ahead of it. Any other questions on this part? Okay. Let me go on to that. And that's my next question for you, and I'm kind of seeking y'all's guidance and consensus. We got a proposal from TxDOT which showed the next round of this type funding that was going to come out. When we first looked at it, it basically focused on safe routes to schools, which what we got was a TA set aside. It's kind of all in the same umbrella, but this particular one was going to focus on safe routes. So we had just mainly looked at what options we had on applying for safe routes. When we actually got the actual document in hand, it showed that the transportation alternatives for our city, while it was listed, it showed, no funding for that at this point. But then when you read the footnote says, conditional project list will be created to assist TxDOT in prioritizing non-urban and small urban projects for potential future federal TA, that's the TA set aside appropriations in fiscal year 21-22. So what that said to me is, while they don't have funding right now, if I don't turn in an application now, I'm not in the hopper of prioritizing for when those do come out in 21-22. So what we're going to do is submit, or what we're asking to do, and we'll take this to council, I'm talking to y'all before that, is we're requesting to go ahead and submit an application. Those are due in April? April is the preliminary one. So it's kind of just a small application. They screen those, and if you're accepted, then they have you submit a bigger application that's due in October. So what we're proposing to do is move forward with submitting a application for Phase B, and submitting that coming up. What we are requesting is that while we don't, the project, if you go all the way from Beauregard to Houston Hart, right now, without details on getting bids in on Phase A, they're projecting it's a $12 to $13 million project. So what we're proposing to do is submit this with just a list of funding sources, not the actual dollars attached to those yet. But the funding sources would be basically the same as what we have done before. They would be the TA grant funding, the TxDOT grant, any remaining allocations from Phase A, North Tiers money, street funds, water and sewer, stormwater funds, Costa DC, HOT, and any general fund dollars that they would want to use. So what we'll be talking to y'all, what we're talking about with y'all today, and what we'll be talking to council about is, do you in concept agree that you want to try to apply for the next grant? And if so, we would just list these as the potential funding sources for our project. I think that's kind of it.
Yes.
Goes
I
hand in
think-
hand.
I
I mean,
think
we're already
would be
spending
the-
the money on all the phases ahead of time, so I mean,
The good part is this, like you said, this one will already have the construction drawings done. We'll have this other project underway. I think that we'll be hopefully poised well, that, they'll be looking at this one as a good opportunity. We always run the risk of when we get into it, depending on how much funds they are actually allocating, that they say, okay, you have a good project, but we really don't think you're going to get this much. You need to scale it back. So, we kind of play that game as we go along and see where we land. But right now, our intention is that we would try to apply for the whole rest of the way and see if we can get that complete. So that would be huge.
Applying for the rest of the way, you had said it was a 1% match, correct? And we upped it to 25 to try and better our chances.
Right.
Will we do that?
Actually, last time we were authorized to up it to 30%. We ended up scaling that back to 25%, and that was after visiting a lot with TxDOT. So my personal opinion is that if we have a proven track record with Phase A, and we've done well, and we have a good project, that I really think we ought to just stick with the 20%. We could up it, but I think that if we've done good work and they know our track record, I think we'll have a good chance regardless whether it's 20 or 25. But we can kind of make that call when we get a little closer. If we're chosen if we make it past the first round and they put us in the hopper, then before we actually submit the second bigger application, we can make that decision.
is each section, cost of goods go up, constantly, and so are we anticipating each tranche or each section of it to be 10 million at a time?
Initially, I think the Washington side is the easiest side.
Okay.
So the side going from the river to Washington is just, there's just less to deal with there. It gets expensive because in this case, you've got, for instance, the design team, Centurion, they're actually going to be having individual meetings with every property owner. There's all this coordination that goes on that normally in a project for the city doesn't require that intense of. The other thing that comes into play is the overhead and the utilities and all those kind of things. It kind of varies from block to block. So basically, these two that we're doing now are the most expensive. And Phase A, really, if you look at it, it was shorter for that amount of money because it's even more intense. It's the most intense one. The next is you're getting a longer stretch for about the same amount of money. But I will say this, until the bids come in on Phase A, I won't have a real firm, this is the projections that they're giving us at this point. So once we get those in, we'll know a whole lot more about what Phase B is going to actually cost.
So does this project go up on the curb and on the sidewalk?
We actually take out everything from building facade to building facade. And then we re-put in all concrete streets, but then all of the new sidewalks are all new. Everything as far as the pedestrian elements as well.
And are the business owners responsible for any of that?
No, one of the options we took to council back when we had the funding options for Phase A, some cities do assess you can assess a fee basically per foot or however you want to do it to property owners, and council chose not to do that.
And Rick, if I'm not mistaken, most of the downtown businesses, the property line is the front of the building. So essentially, we're really only working with city right-of-way anyway, aren't we?
Correct. Now, with that said, the way I understand it, those our ordinances and so forth require business owners to maintain
Yes.
that in front of their property in good condition where people can't fall and trip and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a, question at that time. Council discussed it quite a bit, whether that was something they wanted to try and get the property owners to help with or not. Doesn't mean it can't be done in the future, but at that time, they chose not to.
When this was all first proposed, I reflected on what I learned many years ago on my first visit to Fort Concho, that Oscar Ruffini had originally designed the wide streets in downtown San Angelo so that a beer wagon could be turned around without having to go around the block. And as an architect, he did a lot of things for San Angelo in that start. And I was a bit unsettled about encroaching on those wide boulevards with the corner treatments and such. But now that I see the design work, I can't help but stand behind it. And you guys are doing an awesome job on this.
We hope that at the end of the day, our goal is that it's something that's classy, it fits with the historic nature of downtown, sort of timeless, where it's not so trendy that, it goes out of style quickly, but and practical. So we'll see. I think it's
And it
gonna be
plays
nice.
in well with what's just started over there on Concho Avenue by the YMCA.
Correct.
That whole downtown welcomeness is going to be extended to the whole district, and I just applaud it.
We appreciate y'all's support, and like I said, I'm just kind of looking today also for y'all's consensus on moving forward with the grant application and, those listed. Clearly, if we get Phase B, y'all are going to be a part of that financial playing team, so I wanted y'all to, have consensus that that's something y'all wanted to try and support.
Any questions? All right, thank you, Rick. Moving on to line item B, update on project expenditures and accomplishments for the Affordable Housing Assistance Program, AHAP. Presentation by Bob Salas, Director of Neighborhood and Family Services. Good morning.
Good morning. See if I get this thing working. We're up into the, Rick, take it. Hey, Rick, do you have the, Oh, here it is, right here. It's hiding.
It's hidden.
All right. Sorry, Rick, I didn't mean to blame you here. All right. Rick. There it is. No, it's not. I'm going, man. There it goes. Okay. I am here just to give you a quick update on the Affordable Housing Assistance Program. The affordable housing component of the half-cent sales tax was approved back in 2005, I believe. My department took over in 2008. We are allocated $335,000 a year to carry out the primary program, which is gap financing for first-time home buyers, with a cap of $40,000 for new home construction. We do secure the investment with forgivable deferred loans and lien notes, which stay with the mortgage through the life of the mortgage. The program only assists low, moderate income citizens of San Angelo and is based on HUD guidelines, and they do change a little bit every year, and we try to keep up with that. Because we build such a huge, relatively large fund balance at the beginning of the program, we were able to take on some short-term projects to kind of help forward the city's neighborhood revitalization program. Some of these included the neighborhood blitzes, housing rehabilitation programs, roof replacement projects, purchase of 6 new spec homes over there on Shelton Street, which, by the way, subsequently sold, and the money came back to the program. And of course, we support low-income housing tax credits. And I'll talk about those in a little bit. Here's a quick status of the projects. We've expended a little over $3 million on the gap financing program, and we completed 72 new homes. Actually, that should be 72. I think you got the wrong number there. So that's double that. Should be 72. The average is about $41,000 per unit, which, by the way, yeah, that's just. Did I get you? I think we have the old one there. So, anyway, those numbers are a little bit different. It's $3 million and it's 72 new homes. We did spend over $480,000 on neighborhood revitalization, replacing siding and painting 126 homes. Completed 60 housing rehabilitation projects, 112 roof replacements, and of course, we bought and sold the 6 spec homes there on Shelton Street. And we committed over $20,000 for tax support, tax credit projects, which, by the way, brought in 228 apartment units, which really is a lot of great bang for the buck. By the way, I'm not sure if you know much about tax credits, but it's really the program is managed out of the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs over there in Austin. It's really the most effective partnership between local and government and the private sector, by the way. What happens is the participants get tax relief and the city gets housing investments with very little taxes used here locally. We are in Region 12. We compete with Midland and Odessa, and we've been very successful over the last 4 or 5 years. I think we won the last 4 of the 5 competitions. So we're very, very competitive. And of course, only one wins every year. Here's some projects that you all supported that are already completed. One is Kirby Park Villas, which is in the corner of 29th Street and Martin Luther King. That includes 72 units. And by the way, they have a groundbreaking next Friday, and you're all welcome to join us if you would. We also have we have the Noah Estates, which is 36 single-family scattered sites there in Blackshear. Those were built about 4 or 5 years ago. One of the first projects that you all supported. And then we have a couple of them underway. We have the Glen Park Apartments that won the credits 2 years ago. That's on there on South Chadburn and Old Christoval Road near Goodfellow Air Force Base. That's going to bring us 60 units for family. And then we have Oak Trails, which is here locally close to this building here, in fact, over there on Baker Street. And that's going to bring 60 units for elderly restricted. So that's a quick rundown. I'll be glad to answer any of your questions that you have.
Any questions, concerns from the board?
Well, it looks like Kirby Park's had a soft opening, and are tenants moving in now?
They are. They pretty much leased up pretty much all the units, in fact. They were, like I said, I think they were short. They were a few short. I think they're short 10, and they got those done about 3 months ago. So I think they're in full capacity. So we're pretty excited about that.
Cars started moving in the parking lot.
Yes,
a couple of weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah, they're moving right along. So
okay, good.
And we'd love you guys to show up and kind of show the flag a little bit if you would. So.
The Glen Park project, is that one? I noticed the other ones were kind of age-based, 55 and older. Is Glen Park set up that way as well? Or
Glen Park is for families. It's a family unit. So the idea behind that one was we're trying to support Goodfellow Air Force Base, and the young airmen there will be eligible for those units. So we're pretty excited about that as well. So
There on 29th Street, what date and time is that opening?
Between 1 and 3 is
Yes.
the groundbreaking. Yes.
On what date?
Next Friday, which is the 7th,
Thank you, sir.
March the 7th. So, okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll move on to line item C, public hearing regarding the use and sales. I'm going to start over. Public hearing regarding the use of sales and use tax funds in an amount not to exceed $300,147 to provide an economic development incentive to Principal LED LLC for a project related to business enterprises that create or retain primary jobs as authorized for a Type B corporation under Local Government Code, Chapter 504, Subchapter C. Presentation by Shannon Scott, Business Retention and Expansion Coordinator. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Board. Shannon Scott, Business Retention and Expansion Coordinator for the City of San Angelo. As President Cole stated, this item is in regards to a public hearing for the project Principal LED. And according to the Local Government Code, Section 505.159, we are required to undertake a public hearing before we expend any funds. Just to give you all a quick reminder of this project, again, this was approved at last month's board meeting for Principal LED. Just a quick rundown, they currently have 71 employees, anticipating hiring up to 64 additional employees within 3 years with an average salary of $35,000, and anticipate expending $2.4 million in capital investment for their facility expansion and equipment. And again, the incentives that were approved at last month's board meeting and subsequently ratified by City Council at their first February meeting included $100,000 for a capital investment incentive once the $2.4 million is made, $2,500 per job per full-time equivalent up to 64 FTEs, and then up to $40,147 for property tax rebates for a value not to exceed $5 million. And again, that total incentive package is $300,147. So with that, I would ask to open up the public hearing.
Open up the public hearing at this time. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we will close the hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Move on to line item D, public hearing regarding the use of sales and use tax funds in an amount not to exceed $20,000 to provide an economic development incentive to Carter-Fentress Engineering LLC for a project related to business enterprises that create or retain primary jobs as authorized for a Type B corporation under Local Government Code, Chapter 504, Subchapter C. Presentation also by Ms. Shannon Scott.
Thank you. Again, required by law that we have a public hearing in order to undertake the expenditures of funds. Again, this was a project that was approved at last month's board meeting and then subsequently ratified by City Council. So just to remind everyone the details of this particular project for Carter-Fentress Engineering, they currently have 3 employees and anticipate hiring up to 4 additional employees within 3 years with an average salary of $34,860. And they also anticipate expending $200,000 in capital investment for the purchase of a new building. And the breakdown of the incentives, again, that were approved is $16,000 once their capital investment of the $200,000 is made, and then $1,000 per FTE for up to the 4 jobs for a total incentive package of $20,000. And with that, I would ask to open up the public hearing.
Public hearing at this time. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we will close the public meeting or public hearing.
Thank you.
Whatever.
Always done with humor.
Moving on to line item E, consider a resolution authorizing the use of sales and use tax funds in the sum of $65,000 for purposes of awarding a contract to Enter Direct USA Limited, DBA Community Development Strategies, for expert services to prepare a comprehensive housing analysis that will assess overall housing needs in the competitive market area to include workforce and affordable housing for a project authorized for a Type B corporation under Local Government Code, Chapter 505, Subchapter D. Morning, Guy.
Good morning. Guy Andrews, Director of Economic Development. This is a project that we have discussed with all of our stakeholders and are bringing forward at this time. You have information in your packets in regard to this. A housing study is necessary for a community to help determine by a third-party consultant where there might be gaps in our housing, and that's at all income levels, all pricing ranges within housing. This is especially important to us with our low unemployment rate within the community. Because when we go to recruit new businesses, the likelihood of them bringing new employees is much greater since we do have low unemployment within the community. In order to accommodate those companies, though, we need to have adequate housing within the community, within all price ranges, so that they stand a good chance of bringing that company to here. We have been through an RFP process. We received 4 proposals in regard to this. We identified community development specialties or strategies as the most qualified bidder. They're also the lowest cost bidder at $65,000. So what we're asking for, this resolution asks for, is to allow us to enter into a contract with CDS in regard to this study. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
We have, so we've been involved in some of these meetings with the city. We have some of the home builders, the base, financial institutions, a lot of people sitting at the table together talking about the housing problem that we face. And everyone agreed that this study was needed. Now, that said, there were some outside funding for this study of the $65,000 maybe available, but nobody seemed to know when, where, how, who, or any of that. So COSA DC is basically stepping up and saying, okay, let's get the train going. We'll go ahead and fund it, but we're still going to be looking for those outside funding coming from whoever it is. Do we need to say in the sum of up to $65,000?
That would be correct. That would be the maximum amount that we would approve. It's up to $65,000, which is the bid amount.
Meaning if there was somebody else that stepped in, we would
Here,
just
I want to
take a
donate
portion of
10,000 to this
ours.
project, that's wonderful. But in the line item E here, do we need to have it say up to 65,000?
The resolution is in anticipation of the contract pursuant to the proposal. So they will need to resolve the allowance of $65,000. Now, if there's outside sources that want to like rebate something, that would be possible. Or if they step in before the contract is signed, then they can use less than 65 of the COSA DC funds. So those are the two options.
So this wording leaves us open for,
Right.
perfect.
Right.
That's all I need to
Okay.
know. When will this start?
We will take this upon approval from COSA DC to council next week for ratification. After ratification, the vendor can proceed once they've received their partial upfront payment. So it will start immediately, basically, with their work. They will hold meetings with the stakeholders, which is part of the process, beginning in April. This process is about 3 to 3.5 months to conduct this study, but it is an extremely thorough study.
So by July, we'll have numbers.
Yes, sir. What
So
the
we need-
result of that study will be and how it helps our builders and developers is that with empirical information rather than just anecdotal information based on this study, they can take that to a financing organization and say, this has been studied. The other thing we want to do is to get this study into HUD's hand, because we already know that we have people that want to build apartments here. Most of that financing does come from HUD, but the ones that have approached them previously have been told San Angelo's not on our radar. We want to put San Angelo on HUD's radar for financing.
Other questions, concerns by the board?
Got per, CDS proved to be the most qualified as far as the bids that came in per
yes,
your grading process?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll make the motion that we proceed.
I'll make a second.
Motion by Mr. Berrien, second by Director Carrasco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We win 6-0.
Good job, guy.
On line item F, update and discussions regarding airport gateway improvements. Presentation by Guy Andrews, Director of Economic Development.
As you're well aware, we are looking at development of a business park, business/industrial park on property at the airport, and that's in process now. However, one of the projects that we're looking at now and like to bring forward is the idea of some gateway improvements about the way it looks as you exit our airport now. As you exit San Angelo Regional Airport, all you see are mesquite, sagebrush, not very attractive. So what this proposes to do would be to go in and, as an initial step, clear brush on the property that's across the street. That property belongs to the Bureau of Reclamation. We've already met with them. Bob Schneeman and I met with them, and they're very much in favor of this project. Also, the game wardens involved in this from the standpoint of control of access and that sort of thing. And they're also would like to clear that for fire lanes as well. So there's sort of a project that's win-win for a lot of people involved in that process. Just recently, yesterday, Bob Schneeman did some estimates on this project, and probably clearing of that property up to 200 feet deep would be less than $100,000, somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000. So we feel like this is a good first step in beautifying that gateway. There are plans after that to see how it looks, is to provide some type of monument across from the exit that would say, "Welcome to San Angelo." So that would be a gateway from the west, provided that. So I'll be glad to answer any additional questions you might have.
We're talking about just clearing that brush that's in that strip of red.
The red was just sort of something that we proposed, a concept. We had actually, I think, proposed to clear that back further. That's probably not 200 feet, but.
But not the whole yellow area that's
no,
encompassed
definitely
there.
not, just the red area, all that frontage to help improve the looks and people coming in. And I think that's important to us too, in the way that looks as we develop our business park and that sort of thing, is that we've already taken that first initial step. We're also looking at, there may be funding available for, as you come into the airport and leave the airport on that exit, for some landscaping and additional things that would help improve the looks on that as well.
Questions, concerns? Thank you, Guy. Line item G, consider a resolution authorizing the sale of approximately 6.4 acres of land out of the San Angelo Business and Industrial Park to Jeff Prince Operating LP at a price of $25,000 per acre. Authorize the board president to negotiate and execute a real estate sales contract in form approved by the city attorney, and recommending ratification by City Council. Presentation by Economic Development Project Manager Robert Schneeman.
Thank you. As the President just said, I'm Bob Schneeman with the City's Economic Development Department. I'm the Economic Development Project Manager. This item is something I believe we've talked about before, but we have an offer for 6.4 acres. This is right on the corner of FM 380 and Loop 306. The offer is for $25,000 per acre, and we had a couple of contingencies on that offer. One is that they would like a 120-day inspection period, and I'll explain why that is in just a minute. And then they would close within 30 days after the completion of the inspection period, if not sooner. We can mutually agree to close sooner if everything goes more smoothly than we anticipate. And we, as the seller, are to provide a TxDOT driveway permit. the next item will actually discuss that in a little bit more detail. This is the property we're talking about. Basically, it's this 6.4 acres. And the driveway permit that they're specifically talking about is this entrance right here. They would like an access onto Loop 306, or access from Loop 306, actually. And we've got a proposal on how to go about doing that, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in the next item. So, open it for questions.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Director Berryu?
Second.
Second by Director Dindal. Any other comments? All approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Line item H, consider a resolution authorizing the board president to negotiate and execute a professional service agreement with Centurion Planning and Design in a sum not to exceed $7,500 relating to an approved project for additional professional engineering and surveying services required by TxDOT on a permit applications for driveway access to a portion of the remainder of Block 1, San Angelo Gateway, additional Section 1 of the San Angelo Business and Industrial Park, subject to approval by the City Council. Presentation also by Mr. Schneeman.
Thank you. Again, this is tied to the previous item. In order to obtain a TxDOT driveway permit or access permit, there will at least need to be a conceptual grading plan showing how we're going to handle the drainage and also any detention that may be required. So for this contract, we've asked that the consultant do the conceptual grading and drainage design and an analysis showing how much water is going where. Submit and process TxDOT driveway permit. Submit and process a TxDOT appeal to that. We anticipate that we will probably be turned down on the first application, and the total contract is not to exceed $7,500. The reason we anticipate that we would be turned down the first time, we've discussed this with TxDOT already. There's an on-ramp right here going onto the loop, and this driveway is too close to that on-ramp. We have proposed that be an in-only driveway so that there isn't that tendency for someone to try to come out and make a right turn onto the on-ramp. And in doing that, it also brings into question then how do they get traffic through? Well, this would be this driveway here would be a two-way driveway in and out. And then we also are proposing that we only have a total of 3 driveways on FM 380 for these 3 properties, so they would be shared access driveways. That sort of softens the blow a little bit with TxDOT on access to and from FM 380. So that's the approach, and Centurion would do that preliminary design to facilitate this and help us obtain those permits, as a part which is required under the contract.
Perfect.
And that's the reason for the 120 days.
Yes, this is going to take a little bit longer. If it moves more quickly, fine, we can close early, and they're anxious to close now.
Questions, concerns? Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Second by Mr. Puelo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Schneeman.
I'm just trying to get all my motions in before I depart.
Appreciate it.
Excuse me. Todd, who did the first, please? John.
You can just put him down for the rest of them, probably. All right, moving on. Line item I, consider appointing Costa DC board member or staff to the Costa DC representative to the Ports to Plains Alliance Board. Presentation made by Guy Andrews, Director of Economic Development.
Okay, as you're aware, we are members of the Ports to Plains Alliance, and Director Berryu has been our board representative for a number of years on the Ports to Plains. And with his departure from the board, we need to appoint a new representative to fill that role. It is as a non-voting or ex officio member of the board of Ports to Plains. The voting member is Mayor Gunter.
I would move to appoint Guy Andrews to that role.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dindal. Any comments, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to J, consider appointing Costa DC Board Representative to the Transportation Advocates of Texas I-14 Board of Directors. Presentation by Guy Andrews.
We're also a member of the what was the I-14 Gulf Coast Coalition. That has now been taken over by the Transportation Advocates of Texas. It's primarily a lot of the same board members, and they have asked to have a representative from San Angelo appointed to that board, and so need to make a nomination for that.
I would also move to appoint Guy Andrews to our Texas Transportation Advocates of Texas Board of Directors.
I'll second that.
Second, any comments?
Yes, having served on the Ports to Plains, which is I-27, I seemed at times isolated from the I-14 knowledge, wisdom, parallel efforts. To have the same person on those boards just makes total
Makes a lot of
sense.
sense. Yep.
So, Guy, I wish you well.
Godspeed, young man.
Also with that, Director Coles, maybe in a future meeting, I know that several people on the board are significantly passionate about these projects and how they proceed in the future, so I might direct staff to maybe form a transportation subcommittee that could assist Mr. Andrews in his work with both of these projects as we go forward, but that would be on a future agenda item, but just as a note. So.
I think it would be a good idea to have, or to direct staff to form a subcommittee for just our transportation in general. You know, you could encompass 14 and 27.
I'm assuming that would take a resolution, Mr. Soluri, in order to form a subcommittee. We would need to bring forth a resolution.
Yeah, so the requirement would be to report to the board.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, and we'll bring that forward at the next meeting.
Okay, I still need, do I have a motion on J?
Yes, you do. You just need a vote.
Do I have a second?
You have
A second.
All right, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Guy. Moving on, presentation on the last 5 years of economic development. Presentation by Guy Andrews.
This is a presentation actually resulted from a request from one of our council members, and you probably sometimes hear this same type of information that Costa DC's spending millions of dollars to entice people to come to San Angelo and that sort of thing. So I just developed this little brief presentation as sort of a reminder and some information out there. First of all, I'd like to say that there is no such thing as free money. People talk about that a lot of times and think that we're just here giving away money. All of the incentives that Costa DC provides are earned incentives. There's a partnership between Costa DC and the business is shaped with a legal agreement. Incentives are not paid until certain conditions outlined in the agreement are met, and all of our agreements must be approved by the Costa DC Board of Directors and City Council. And let me say that those are also very carefully scrutinized by our legal team as well. So there's probably no more agreements that are made that are more scrutinized than what we do. San Angelo, as we know, is a Type B Economic Development Corporation, and so this allows us to provide economic incentives, but it also allows us to do community development-related projects. And this provides us flexibility to undertake projects whenever opportunities arise. So in a way, we're economic developers, but we're also opportunists that are looking for those opportunities to assist where we can with and leverage money. Some statistics here in terms of the BREP projects that we've done. The direct jobs that have been created over the past 5 years are 56. That resulted in capital investment in our community of $3.163 million and a direct increase in taxable property values of about a little over $2.5 million. The average income of the new jobs created was about $54,852, and the amount of incentives that we paid to acquire those benefits was $587,822. As you're well aware that we contract with the Chamber of Commerce to do our business recruitment out there. Over the past 5 years, the number of direct jobs that have been created by those efforts is 401. Capital investment in the community is a whopping $167,070,000. We don't know what our direct increase in taxable property values are and the average income of the new jobs created. And the reason for that is the amount of incentives that have been paid for those job creations and that capital investment is $0. So we pay the chamber $225,000 a year to do this, and you can see that they're producing extremely well for us. In terms of sales in our industrial park, we've sold approximately 123 acres. The total sales revenue for those sales has been $2.6 million. The appraised value of the improvements resulting from those sales is $86 million. And so the increase in the appraised taxable value for that property has been a little over $24 million. We also have ballot projects that we've undertaken as well. This is a 5-year recap of those. So we've spent about $32 million, nearly $33 million. On a 5-year average, we spent about $6.6 million per year on those ballot projects. I'd be glad to answer any other questions that you might have in regard to what's happened over the past 5 years.
Questions, concerns on the presentation?
Good to see it all put together. So, thanks for doing that.
Yeah. We will now move to line item 7, closed session, executive session under the provision of Government Code, Title 5, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirements that meetings be open under the following sections. Section 551.087, to deliberate regarding commercial or financial information that the board is receiving from business prospects with whom economic development negotiations are being conducted, and discuss financial or other incentives relating to the following projects. Project 2019 J32, Project 2019 T35, Project 2019 S28, Project 2019 E49, Project Reno, Project ICET, Project PAC, SMC Global Expansion 3, Project KIM, Project 0916, B, Section 551.072, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if deliberation in an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governmental body in negotiations with a third person. For the love of God.
I missed that. Can you repeat that again?
We are now in closed session. All right, we are now out of executive session. Follow up on administrative issues, announcements, and consideration of future agenda items. We have none. I would.
As my final act, I will make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Berry, second by Dr. Cummings. All in favor?
Aye.
We gone.